Capel.
The NDP leader put on a big phony show this summer on the eve of a by-election, pretending to rip up the coalition deal. And recently he said, quote, "The Liberals will always cave to corporate greed and always step in to make sure unions have no power." We couldn't have said it better ourselves. And Conservatives have put forward a motion agreeing with the NDP leader. So Canadians will soon find out whether or not he means anything he ever says, or if he'll sell out union brothers and sisters to keep this corrupt Liberal government in power just so he can keep his pension. So, question to the government, have they put the coalition deal back together so the Prime Minister keeps power and the NDP leader keeps his pension?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, my question...
I'm sorry. One moment, please. Eric? So again, I will speak to this near the end of after question period, but I'm going to encourage, that was again not about the government business, but I see that I do see that the Honourable Leader of the Government, Government House Leader wants to rise to answer. So the Honourable Member.
Mr. Speaker, I wish you had afforded the same courtesy to the Minister of Finance, who also wanted to answer a question. And I think it would be appropriate to make sure that we apply the same standard moving forward. But what I would like to say to the Leader of the Opposition is that we gave him an opportunity to debate that, and instead of taking it, they ran away afraid. So, Mr. Speaker, I am surprised that he's even bringing this up, because when we gave them an opportunity to hold that vote, they said no, Mr. Speaker, but that's just another pattern of their behavior where they say one thing and do another.
The Honourable Member for Regina Capel.
That's just not true. They just got mixed up on what day the debate is going to be had. It's going to be held this Thursday, and the vote will be on Monday, and all Canadians will be watching who's on the side of Canadian workers. Because this Prime Minister launched a brutal assault on workers. He devalued their paychecks with his inflation. He drove up prices with his carbon tax. He's doubled housing costs. He's hiked taxes, canceled big projects that put union members back to work, and issued edicts that undermined their collective bargaining rights. So once again, question to the government. Have they put the coalition deal back together so that the NDP will qualify for his pension while Canadian workers suffer?
The Honourable Minister for Labour and for Seniors.
The member seems to be referring to incidents last summer where, I might add, I consulted with the Conservative Party, who were urging me, as we did at the time, to come to the aid of farmers in Saskatchewan and throughout Western Canada who were trying to get what was a bumper crop to the ports and to international markets, which is the pride of Canada, Mr. Speaker. We intervened to save Canadian farmers and to save Canadian union jobs. That's what we did. The Conservatives sat on the sidelines. We'll always stand for Canadian workers.
The Honourable Member for Flamborough-Glanbrook.
Speaker, the NDP leader claims to have ripped up the deal with the Liberals, calling this government weak, selfish, and beholden to corporate greed. Yet he's voted over 24 times to hike the carbon tax, driving up the cost of everything. Meanwhile, 2 million Canadians visited food banks last month, 18% of them workers. Will the leader of the NDP sell out Canadians again, or has the Prime Minister made another backroom deal with the leader of the NDP to secure his pension at the cost of Canadian workers?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I'm not sure that that question had anything to do with government business, but on this side of the House, when we do that, whether it was the member from Kingston or whether it was the member from Davenport, our questions were taken away, even though they were with regards to government business. However, what I can say is that the Conservatives keep running scared. Whenever we give them an opportunity to do what they say, they vote against it. Whether it's cutting taxes and giving people a GST holiday, what did they do? Vote against. Whether it's actually coming forward with a motion to vote confidence in the government government, what do? Vote against. Mr. Speaker, they're too scared to actually act on their issues. They'd rather provide slogans than solutions. On this side of the House, we're acting for Canadians. Thank you.
After 9 years of this Prime Minister, Canadians cannot afford their rent or mortgages. The NDP leader has called the Liberals too weak, selfish, and beholden to corporate interests to fight for Canadians. But it is the NDP leader himself that is keeping the Prime Minister in power. Conservatives have tabled a motion of confidence using the NDP leader's own words. Will the NDP leader stand behind his words, or has the government made another spineless backroom deal at the expense of Canadians?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative members of Parliament are really getting to be pretty ridiculous around here. You know, they have an opportunity to ask real questions of the government, but instead they choose to play petty politics. I'll be honest, Mr. Speaker, yesterday I introduced a motion that would give them the opportunity to do that. Remember, the Leader of the Opposition tweeted about that over the weekend, but when given the opportunity, they said no, Mr. Speaker. Why? Because they're too afraid and too weak to actually do what they say, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we're going to stand up for Canadians. We're going to provide real affordability measures, even if they try to stand in our way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Battleford's Lloydminster.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what is ridiculous is Canadians are struggling to feed, heat, and house themselves while the NDP leader waits to get his pension. In a by-election stunt, he claimed to rip up his agreement with the Liberals. Yet the NDP's actions prove that the carbon tax coalition is driven by his pension and the Prime Minister's lust for power. Canadians cannot afford this costly coalition. Will the NDP vote non-confidence, or has the Prime Minister crafted yet another spineless backroom deal?
I know members are having some questions, but I will have an opportunity to speak to this after question period. The Honourable Leader of the Government of
Mr. Speaker, it kind of boggles the mind that the Conservatives are talking about pensions for their members when the Leader of the Opposition has a $2 million pension from the House of Commons, Mr. Speaker. It's unbelievable what they say. They say one thing, they do another. You cannot trust these Conservative members of Parliament with anything that they say, because pretty much what they're accusing others of is exactly what they do. Thank you.